we've got all of our shirts printed. Everything has been put through the tunnel. All of our shirts are dry and ready to go. Now we need to get all of the ink cleaned up and put everything away now that we're done printing. So first thing we need to do is we need to get all of this extra ink out of the screen and back into the bucket, okay? So to do that, what we're gonna do to start is we're gonna take our ink knife here, okay? And I'm gonna scrape off any of the extra ink that's on my knife, and I'm gonna put it back into the bucket, okay? I'm just lightly scraping it across the top of the opening of the bucket here, and that's grabbing off all of the extra ink to get as much of the heavy stuff off of there as possible. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to start by cleaning the ink off of the squeegee. So I'm gonna take the squeegee, I'm gonna carefully get it up here so I can get it out of the screen, and I'm going to scrape the ink off of the squeegee blade and put it back into the bucket. So what I like to do is I like to come over to the bucket here, all right? And again, I like to have the squeegee over the bucket, and all I'm going to do is take the side edge of my knife, and I'm going to scrape down and then swipe that ink back into the bucket, okay? So I'm going to do that on all of the sides. There's the bottom. There's going to be a little bit on the front, and then on each of the sides here. All I'm going to do is just swipe that back into the bucket, okay? Now, that's the first step. The next step is I need to get the ink that's in the screen out. So I've got a lot of heavy ink along the back of the screen again where I had put it in the beginning. So all I'm going to do again is I'm going to take the edge of the knife, okay, the edge. It's not sharp, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly scrape the ink out of the screen. So I'm going to start on one side, and I'm going to scrape across, and I'm going to grab a bunch of ink, okay, again, twirl it around so the ink doesn't drip on the floor, and I'm going to go right to the bucket. And I'm going to scrape that ink and put it right back into the bucket. And I'm going to keep doing this until I get all of the ink out of the screen. Catch the drips in the bucket. There's no reason to get rid of this ink. It's still very good, okay? So we'll use it again for another print. Put that back. We'll do this side now. And the front. So all I've done is gone around all the way on all four sides, and I've scraped out all of the extra big globs of ink out of the screen. So I'm going to set my knife down now to the side, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to use my squeegee. What I'm going to do is I'm going to squeegee out all of that extra ink that I can, whatever I can get out of the screen now before I take it off press and go over to the cleanup tables. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my squeegee in here, and I like to pull for this. I don't like to push. I find pulling is easier. It kind of scrapes the ink off better. So all I'm going to do is, before I scrape, let me show you this. We have a cleanup mat, okay? So it's just a big piece of paper, okay? Big piece of paper. That's going to cover up our table, okay? I don't want to get ink on my table here. If I do, I'm going to have to clean it all off. Again, I like to be as clean as possible. So grab a sheet of a cleanup mat here. It's just a thicker piece of paper. We'll lay that down over the top of our table, and now we can kind of press through and get this ink out of the screen. So, again, 45-degree angle, just like you're going to do for your passes when you're printing your shirt. Press down nice and hard, and I'm going to scrape the ink out. You're going to get a little ink on the blade edge there. Again, we come back to the bucket, use the side of the ink knife, scrape that ink off, put it back into the bucket. 1 or 2 times is usually all you need to do, and we'll get the rest of that heavy ink out of there, and we'll be ready to come off press now and head over to the cleanup tables to finish everything up, okay? So, one last trick here before we go over to the tables. We've got a lot of ink left on the knife. So if you take that knife and you scrape it across the blade of the squeegee, it takes off almost all of that ink, okay? So, little trick there I've learned over the years. Scrape off all that extra on there. Again, it's less that you have to clean with the cotton pads. So I'm just going to take the tip now and scrape that extra off, that little bit of glob right there, and I'm going to put that in the bucket. Once I do that, we're going to head on over to the cleanup tables, and we're going to get the squeegee, the knife, and that screen all cleaned up, and we can get everything put away. of cleanup tables now, and what I've done is I've, again, scraped all the ink out of the screen that I can and put it back into the bucket. I grabbed another one of those cleanup mats and I put it down underneath my screen. Again, I don't want to ink on the table. It's less I'm going to have to clean. So we'll put that underneath the screen. I have the ink side up here, okay? I laid some newspapers out on the side for my tools to sit on so I don't get ink on those on that side of the table. So I've got everything all prepped and set ready to get clean, okay? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tape out of the screen. I got to get that out of there. So I'm just going to peel that up and get this out, okay? And I'm going to get that in the garbage can. All right. Now that that's out of the way, I'm going to take a little bit of my screen cleaner, my spray, and all I'm going to do is spray the screen a little bit, okay? I'm going to let that cleaner get in there and start to break apart that ink. I'm going to come back to our bucket here. When we cleaned our screens for the first time, we were able to use those cotton pads. They were still pretty clean. We put them in this bucket. By putting in the bucket, we're going to bring them back now, and we're going to use these to scrape and clean all of this heavy ink out of the screen. If these get really, really bad and really dirty, we're just going to toss them out, okay? So again, these are still really clean from when we cleaned them the first time, way back in the beginning of the screen printing process. So we're going to use them now. We'll finish them up, get them nice and dirty, and then we'll toss them, okay? So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take one cotton pad, and I'm just going to start wiping out the rest of the ink that's in here. And again, I like to do swirls. You can go side to side, up and down. It doesn't matter. All I'm doing is trying to get all that ink out of there, okay? So there's quite a bit on that pad. All I'm going to do is just fold it now, give it a little bit more spray. And keep wiping. Now, this pad is pretty bad, okay? And I've gotten a lot of ink out of here. So with this pad being pretty full now, this we can't really use again, right? There's ink all over it. It's pretty gross. I'm going to take this now, and that one's going to be tossed, and that's going to be garbage. So you can see I've gotten quite a bit of ink out of here. It's really kind of just in my printed open areas. You can see I've got a decent amount of ink on the paper that's been pushed through. I'm just going to flip my screen over now and clean the back side. Same thing. Couple sprays, cotton pad, and we're going to wipe this out, okay? So we're going to kind of go back and forth now from side to side, getting this cleaned out. At this point, I'm going to get rid of my cleanup mat. I don't need this anymore. It has served its purpose. Garbage. Now what I'm going to do is, you can see my screen is pretty clean. I don't have very much ink left in there at all, okay, on either side. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of finish it up. So I have a pretty clean side here. I'm going to spray the pad this time. And all I'm going to do is kind of hold up the screen so it's not on the table. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to wipe this all down. Again, I'm just using one pad right now. I don't have it locked in the clamps. I'm just holding it. So I'll wipe on this side. This is pretty good. Over one more time. We'll rotate this pad around. Get it to a little cleaner side. I'm going to wipe this side off too. So if you look now, I've cleaned the whole screen out. All the ink's gone. One last on this side. I think we're going to be good. So you can't really tell what color ink I used, right? So this is exactly what we need to do to get our screens cleaned, all right? We're going to take this screen and we're going to put it in the dip tank over by the white sink. And that dip tank is going to loosen and soften up all this emulsion so we can blow it out and get rid of it, okay? So I'm going to set this off to the side, and I'm going to clean my tools right now, and then we'll put this in the tank and we'll get this finished up, okay? So with that off to the side, I'm going to start cleaning my tools. So for the tools here, I'm just going to grab that cotton pad. This is still pretty good. Maybe give it one more spray of some cleaner. and all I'm going to do is just wipe all this ink off, okay? So we'll wipe all this off each side. Want to make sure we get all the ink off everywhere, on the sides, the bottom, the front, the back. If you have any on the handle, on the metal part here, on either side, clean that off too, okay? My biggest thing is, if you can put the tools away cleaner than when you got them, you'll never start with a dirty tool, okay? The worst is when you pull a tool out of the cabinet and you have to clean it before you're going to use it, okay? So if we do a really good job at getting this stuff cleaned, we'll be ready to go, all right? So I'll just do a little inspection here. Everything looks pretty good. It's nice and clean. I'll set that off to the side. The knife. You can do the knife two ways, the ink knife. You can clean it with your cotton pad, or you can use a piece of newspaper. It doesn't really matter. If you have a clean pad, you can clean it off with that. So I'll get most of the ink off with the pad, and then I think I'm gonna finish it with some newspaper. So I can see a little bit of a residue that's being left over, because my pad is pretty much trash at this point. So if you look, I've used 2 cotton pads for my entire cleanup. 1.5 for the screen and the other half to clean my tools, okay? So I'm now gonna grab some newspaper, and I'm not even gonna use any spray. I'm just gonna use the dry newspaper. So I've got most of the ink off here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pull this through the newspaper, and that's going to finish off and clean your knife. The newspaper works really, really well, okay? We'll make sure that the edges of the blade are clean all the way around, right? We're gonna inspect the handle, make sure that the handle is clean, that there's no ink on it, okay? Make sure that that's nice and clean before everything gets put back into the cabinet, okay? Now, speaking of, before we put these tools back in the cabinet, you're gonna have to get them inspected, okay? So you're gonna bring them to me. I'm gonna look them over, make sure everything is nice and clean. I'll initial off the sheet for you. If everything looks good and everything is clean, you can then put it away in the cabinet, okay? So, our screen is prepped. We got all the ink out of it as much as we could. We're gonna get ready to go into the dip tank with that one. Our tools are clean. We can get these put back into the cabinet. So, stay tuned and we'll get this screen in the dip tank and we'll get it finished up. Okay guys, so we're now ready to get our screen into the dip tank, all right? The dip tank is going to loosen up and get rid of all of the emulsion for us. Because again, we need to take this screen and we want to use it again. So we got to get this old stencil that we're done using, we got to get it out so we can get it cleaned and prepped and put more emulsion on it to print the next shirt. So how do we get it in the tank? First, you got to lift the lid off the tank, all right? So take the lid off, set that off to the side. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take your screen, okay? And again, these are a solid welded aluminum frame. So there's air that's trapped in our screen frame. So when we take this and we put it into the dip tank, it floats like a boat, okay? So what we need to do is we need to get it pushed down into the dip tank solution, so all of that emulsion is completely submerged underneath the water. So to do that, we've got a couple of little things here underneath the sink. Of a little plastic container and a little plastic stick. We're going to just use that to help us keep that screen down below the surface of the solution, okay? We can put 2 screens in here at a time, all right? So it's not, you don't have to do it one at a time. I only have 1 screen I need to do, so I'm just going to have 1. And I'm going to get that in there. We're going to let that sit in the solution for 5 minutes, okay? 5 minutes is what it's going to take in order for that solution to start breaking apart and loosening up and softening that emulsion, okay? We're then going to pull it out of the dip tank and into the sink, and we're going to get it sprayed out. So I'll come back when this is ready to go. minutes is up now, and we are ready to pull the screen out of the dip tank. So we're going to pull it out of the tank, and we're going to bring it right around and put it right into the sink, okay? So with that, I'm going to pull the stick out, set my stuff back underneath the sink where it belongs. I'm going to pull my screen out here and let it drip for just a couple seconds. Let some of that solution drip back into the tank. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the screen around the corner and into the sink. So again, I'm going to take the screen and I'm going to roll it around. Try not to drip all over the floor. If it happens, it's okay. All we want to do then at the end is just kind of clean it all up so people don't slip and fall. All right, so my screen is in the sink. It's out of the tank. What we're going to do now is we're going to use the pressure washer. The pressure washer is going to blast out all of the little bit of ink that's left over, any of the emulsion, any block out, all that stuff that we have on our screen. The pressure washer is going to knock it all out and get it nice and cleaned, and it's going to be a reclaimed screen ready to rock and roll for the next print. So with that, my water is turned on. We're ready to go. I'm going to turn the switch on here for the pump. I'm going to pressure wash this all out of here, and you'll see here in just a second how clean it's going to get. Okay, so I'm all clean. My screen is ready to go. I've got all that stuff shot out of there. We are completely cleaned out. I had to go in here, get a little closer. I was staying about 6 inches away from my screen. I didn't get much closer than that, okay? But I had to get in a little bit to get some of the hard little spots out of there that were really, really stuck, okay? And that's fine. You can get in a little closer to get those hard to get out spots. But we're ready to go. This is nice and clean now. I'm just going to give that screen one last rinse with the hose. Just want to make sure all of the dip tank solution is off of the screen. It kind of gets sticky if you leave it on there, if it dries. So we want to make sure that gets all nice and rinsed off so it stays super clean, and we're ready to go for the next one. Like we did before, after we degreased, I'm going to just dry all the extra water off of my screen, just so it's not dripping all over the place, and we'll be good to go. We'll be done with this project. All right, guys, there you have it. So we are done with this project, all right? Our screen is clean, our tools are put away, we're ready to rock and roll. From this point here, we're gonna be able to take this screen and start the process all over again, okay? So for our next shirt, we'll make that design, we'll print that film, we'll come out, we'll clean this with brand new clean cotton pads, we'll degrease, and the process just goes on and on and on. It just repeats itself every time you wanna use this screen to print. We'll get it prepped, we'll scoop, we'll print it on the shirt, and we'll come over here, we'll clean it all out, shoot it with the pressure washer, clean all that stuff out of the screen, and again, that process goes on and on and on. A little rinse and repeat, if you will, okay? So, we are done. We finally have our shirt. Awesome. Great job, guys, and yeah, thanks for watching.